Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, I want to take a moment today to address something deeply significant: trusting in God. Many of us struggle with this concept, and I want to assure you that you're not alone in this. I too sometimes find it difficult to put all my trust in God. Do you ever feel that way? You love God, you believe in Him, but there's a lingering uneasiness about the future, especially when you look around at the world today. There's so much to feel uneasy about, isn't there? The tension across our nation, the uncertainty of our times, these are things we can see clearly. We see the ups and downs of our bank accounts, the turmoil in the news, the hardships we face daily. And yet we are called to trust in a God we cannot see. How do we reconcile this? How do we trust in Him when He sometimes doesn't do what we ask, even when we've prayed earnestly, believed wholeheartedly, and trusted deeply? We all experience moments in life that don't make sense. Relationships end, jobs are lost, businesses fail, dreams are deferred. It can feel like we're moving backward, and it's easy to become frustrated and question, God, why is this happening? But here's a profound truth. We're not going to understand everything that happens. God's ways are not our ways. He can see things that we can't. Just because something isn't fair doesn't mean that God isn't in control. Your steps are being ordered by the Lord. If He allowed it to happen, He will bring good out of it. He promises that all things work together for the good of those who love Him. On its own, a situation might not seem good. It may be unfair, uncomfortable. But when it all comes together, you will see how it works to your advantage. The difficulty, the delay, the betrayal, all these are instrumental in reaching your destiny. You have a choice to make. You can choose to trust God right now, or you can choose to trust the systems of the world. Be very careful here, because the systems of the world can fail you. But when you trust in God, He never fails. Lord, help us to obey even when we don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me, but because you're asking me to do it, and because of who you are, I'm choosing to put my trust in you. This leads us to the conclusion that you don't have to understand completely to obey immediately. You don't have to know the end of the story to turn the first page and be obedient to the one who asked you. The question, why, is one that never goes away. You can ask it all you want, but it's a question that rarely gets an answer. Even Jesus asked, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The Bible doesn't say that God answered him back. So the next thing Jesus said was, "Into your hands I commit my spirit." Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." The word acknowledge comes from a Hebrew word meaning to know. In all your ways know Him, and He will make your paths straight. When you know Him in the good times, you learn to trust Him in the bad times. How do you know God? How do you know Him intimately? You trust Him and walk in Him. The only way to know Him is to be close to Him, to cling to Him. To hold on to God, you must let go of whatever else you were previously clinging to. In order to trust in Him, you must lean not on your own understanding. It's hard to not lean on our own understanding. We're wired to figure things out, to rely on our own strength. But when you get to the place where you let go of your own plans, your own desires, your own strategies, and you cling to the one who is a rock and will never fail you, everything else that brought you the illusion of security fades away in the presence of God's goodness and grace. Don't let go. Cling to the promises of God. God, thank you that I can cast my cares upon you because you faithfully care for me. God, I cling to your truth that you will provide all my needs according to your glorious riches in Christ Jesus. God, I thank you and praise you that you're working in all things to bring about good for those who love you and are called according to your purpose. God, I cling to your truth that you will never leave me, that you will never forsake me. When I draw near to you, God, you always draw near to me. God, you are close to the brokenhearted. You save those who are crushed in spirit. You are my refuge, my strength, my help in times of trouble. To cling to the goodness of God, you have to release what you were clinging to before. Lord, help me to trust you and obey even the smallest promptings, even if they don't make sense to me. I don't know the outcome, but the good news is that the outcome is your responsibility. Obedience is mine. What I promise you is that God will prompt you in some way. He'll invite you to trust him, and what you'll discover is that big miracles often follow simple acts of obedience. Trust is relying on the integrity, strength, ability, and surety of God. It's confidence in him. When you rely upon something, you lean on it. Who or what are you leaning on in the midst of hard times, in the midst of lack, in the midst of hurt, in the midst of sickness and disease? Who do you lean on the most? We rely on God when we trust him. To trust God means to rely on him, to place confidence in his certainty, his integrity, his strength, and his promises. There will be times in life when you don't understand what God is doing. Things don't make sense. Trouble, delays, closed doors, betrayals, unanswered prayers. It doesn't make sense now, but don't worry. One day you will understand. God is going to connect all the dots. He doesn't allow things to happen that he doesn't have a purpose for. That trouble is not a surprise to God. The sickness didn't catch him off guard. The child getting off course isn't going to stop his destiny. God is still on the throne. He's still ordering your steps. You can't see it right now, but behind the scenes, God is lining things up in your favor. When it's the right time, when it all comes together, it's going to work for your good. You will see the hand of God. You'll look back and say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have this position. If that door hadn't closed, I wouldn't have met this person. If I hadn't gone through that difficulty, I wouldn't have stepped into this new level. You may not feel like God is changing you or doing anything in your life because it happens in tiny bits. Sometimes when you've got a mountain of problems, you may go years and feel like you haven't changed much at all. But really, you have. The devil wants you to focus on what's still wrong with you instead of how far you've come. Don't look at how far you have to go. Look at how far you've come. Don't look at what you don't have. Look around at what you do have. Christians have a tendency to lean on their understanding instead of completely leaning on God. You've got to decide that when it comes to trusting God, are you going to trust him all the way or just 30% of the time? What are you giving your attention to the most? It may be because you trust it the most. It's tempting to trust other things, other people, other systems. Satan does everything he can to get you to trust him more than God. He wants you to not trust God and to not need God. The root of all evil is when you no longer trust God, when you no longer rely on God, and when you no longer think you need God. When you trust God, you will decide to keep your attention on him. I trust God, so I'm going to keep my attention on his word. I trust God, so I'm going to give my attention to him. I trust God, so I'm going to fellowship with him and practice his presence. I trust God, so I'm going to keep my mind on him because I trust him. When you trust God enough to give your attention to him, he will keep you in perfect peace. You may not understand what you're going through. Instead of living worried and discouraged, try a new approach. God, I don't understand it, but I trust you. I know you're in control. You're working all things for my good. So I'm not going to live upset. I'm going to stay in peace, knowing that you will get me to where I'm supposed to be. Have you committed your cares to him? Cast all your care on him because he cares for you. Commit your troubles, your persecutions, your lack, your relational discord, your hurt and your brokenness to him. Because you trust him, commit your ways unto the Lord. It's freeing when you can say, God, I don't understand it, but I trust you. It doesn't seem fair, but I'm not going to live bitter. I've had some bad breaks and disappointments, but I'm not going to go around sour. I know you're still in control, and you will work out your plan for my life. Remember, God is always faithful. His promises are true. When you cling to Him and release everything else, you'll find that He never fails. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. May God bless you and keep you strong in faith.